Anywhere you go, give it on. Anywhere you say, anywhere.
Of tonight is that there's been a misconception that racial activism is a male initiative, and tonight we want to bring forth the voices of women to show how much we are involved and what we can do and what we've done. For the future events on this series, there's a Miss Saigon casting controversy and the role of Chicano intellectuals, and there's leaflets outside on the table if you want some more information about them. Because we don't want y'all to give these sisters some trouble that happened last night, we're going to lay down some house rules. We want to give these women the respect that they deserve, no interruptions and no disruptions of what they have to say. So there'll be no leafleting inside the building. You can do it outside. Out of respect to the panelists, in the question and answer period, what will happen is you'll raise your hand. Someone will give you a card, you'll write down the question, and then the moderator will read it. Okay? Okay, and now I'd like to introduce the moderator. Her name is Kiulu Nyasha. Nyasha. And among her list of accomplishments are she was a legal secretary and office manager for Charles Gary for the Seale's Huggins trial. Huggins trial, I'm sorry. Reporter, writer, typesetter for the Sun Reporter, a black newspaper in San Francisco. She's an art teacher at community school in San Francisco. Was. Commentator, was a commentator and an interviewer, as well as a panelist for KPF Public Radio, and an activist in the Free Geronimo Pratt campaign. And now I give you Kiulu Nyasha.
And I applaud you for being here, coming out on a TGIF, no less, to hear about the struggle of Panthers and especially Panther women. I'm very honored and pleased that you're all here, and I'm very proud to be among what I consider to be the backbone of the Black Panther movement, the women. We have some very strong, dedicated sisters, and I really feel privileged to be among them. The Black Panther Party, as you well know, was an organization that was both hated and loved in the period beginning in 1966 and dissolving almost in defeat in the 1970s. However, I would like to point out that the Black Panther Party defeat was our collective defeat, because the Black Panther Party was the vanguard organization of the Black Liberation Movement during a certain period of time, and it could only happen with the support and of the majority of the people. And we did have a majority of black people's support. For example, I would like to point out to you that an ABC poll, I believe, that was taken around 1970, polled black people nationwide, and 62% gave the Panthers their full support. Approximately another poll, probably a Harris poll if I don't have my facts mixed up, but one of the established polls indicated very clearly that approximately 2 million people during that period considered themselves revolutionaries. So it was a very different era than the one we're witnessing today. And the Panther Party spread across this country like wildfire, and it left in its wake over 30 chapters. And I'd also like to point out to you that since most of you are from right here in California, The Oakland and San Francisco, or the Bay Area, Richmond, the Bay Area chapters were one thing, were one phenomenon, and they were unique in and of themselves. However, I was on the East Coast and in the New Haven chapter, and I know about that particular chapter. And there was a New York chapter, there was a Boston chapter, there was a Chicago chapter, and they meant different things in different parts of the country. The sisters here will give you a good idea of what was going on in their given chapters, and we will attempt to bring as much information to you as possible. And I would just like to say one more thing before we begin, and that is I would like to quote to you from, I picked up on a quote, a film that I was showing during a political ed class, a PE class at my house the other night, or showing a film that I got from the public library titled Generations of Resistance, about the struggle in South Africa. And I highly recommend it. And one of the things that stuck in my mind was a quote that said, "Where there once was a pool, water will collect again." And on that note, I'm going to introduce our first speaker. I'm sure you're not noticing that I'm nervous. Ericka Lewis, who was the first woman to join the Black Panther Party. She's a revolutionary artist, and her work is on display on the front, whatever you call this thing here. And she is also a jazz violinist and a very dedicated struggler. Ericka?
I'm really honored to be here tonight, and I want to thank each and every one of you for coming tonight, and thank the Graduate Assembly for having the courage to put this panel discussion together and bring everybody here tonight. And I also want to thank God that I am still alive to be here to talk about my past experiences and see some of my comrades here are still alive and are doing something very positive in the community. I wrote down a few things because I get tongue-tied and I forget. There came a time, a long period of time, where I erased a lot of things in my memory from that period. I think it was due to undue stress, fear, paranoia, going underground and trying to leave all that behind. So I'll begin reading what I wrote. Many years ago, 24 years ago, I literally put down my violin and picked up a gun. Chairman Bobby last night reminded me that I was the first sister to join the party. I reflected on that, being a sister, but to me at that time was a revolutionary first and a sister second. I set aside my college education, my career as a violinist, my job, and my family took a back seat. It was critical at the time that we all participated to make a difference. I was no stranger to the revolution at this time. I was 16 in high school at Oakland Tech. I co-founded the BSU along with Larry Thomas and Orleana Harrison. We staged sit-ins demanding black studies, black staff, black cultural activities at the school. These activities we were totally excluded from. I spent my junior and senior year cutting school and going down to Merritt College campus on Grove Street, attending classes, participating in drama groups. I painted one of the murals on the wall. There's some pictures up front of the mural I painted. It was a beautiful time politically and culturally, religiously, historically, and it was a great awakening for us at that time. We listened to Coltrane. I'm trying to paint you a picture of what was happening, not just a narrow view of each of us in the party, because it was the things that we were listening to, what was going on internationally, what was going on in our schools, what had happened to our parents, what was going on down south. The things that here in Berkeley was like a Tiananmen Square here. There were helicopters flying in. Not only were the police patrolling Berkeley, they had the National Guard out here. People were getting killed and shot because they wanted free speech. They didn't want to go to Vietnam and be drafted. Black and white. It did seem like the world was coming to an end to us. And at that time, when I entered the party, there was no Los Angeles branch. There wasn't a San Francisco branch. There were a few of us down at Mary College and in a number of the high schools around who decided this was enough and we were going to do something about it. There was no saying you're either part of the solution or part of the problem. And to us, this was a war. We were at war. This was a wartime experience, not only psychologically, but a physical war. I became assistant to Emory Douglas as a visionary illustrator for the Black Panther paper. I was inspired by revolutionary artists in China, South America, Europe, Africa. My duty was to open the eyes of the people, to give them hope, courage, understanding, to teach, guide, and pull the cover off what was going on, what should be done about it, including exposing Uncle Toms and those who are being used by the government to keep our people asleep. My drawings were very radical. I forgot that I did half of these things. When I went down to the Oakland Public Library and Xerox copies of them, they're on microfiche down there. My mother had saved a few copies of the paper. A few years ago, I ran into a parent of a friend of mine, Betty Bogart, who was also in the party. She said, "Remember that time you and Betty came over and burned all those papers in the sink?" I said, "We did? Really?" And we had found that CIA agents or FBI or what have you had been looking for us. And so we would go from house to house or city to city, assuming other identities just to stay 1 foot ahead. We worked wee hours of the morning and night on the party newspaper. We attended political education classes. And as a female, I earned the respect of the brothers because I worked just as hard or harder than they did. I earned the position of artist and then on to lieutenant. I then taught political education classes. That included history, the philosophy, and the rules. I even taught a drill class to the guys. Earned a lot of respect doing that, yeah. When the guys came up and said, "I ain't gonna do what you tell me to do because you a sister," I invited them to come on out to the weapons range and I could outshoot them. So I also tutored children down at the Afro-American Cultural Center in math and in English. Also sold papers. And I'm saying I, but I'm saying we too, because my other sisters did the same thing. At the time, Belva, Majida, and Artie, they were there too doing the same thing. We didn't have just one job to do. We did many jobs, wore many hats, made many sacrifices, many sacrifices. Historically, I'm not going to get off into any philosophies and stuff, but to me, the party turned the tide from nonviolence to an armed struggle and revolt. The paper gave the community a voice, that we could air our differences, that we could tell what was going on in the community, that we can point out certain things, so it came as a communication for us, nationwide, not just locally, but nationwide. Gave us hope and courage. It was an organization close to the people that reflected the people's desires and an avenue of protection. And we were able to organize a mass of people to form boycotts and picket lines, and to demand jobs. There were times when we went down to Housewives Market to get people jobs in the area, Safeways, things like that. We also went door to door, encouraging people to register to vote. We also organized students in the high schools, on the college campuses, and the learning centers around. We also made politicians and lawyers accountable to the people, that they just couldn't do anything and say anything they wanted without having to answer to us. And we finally had a black agenda, and we also offered free legal advice. The problems, which were many, I'm just going to touch on a few. The lack of self-discipline, the difference of opinion and philosophy kept a lot of us apart. The screening of new recruits, the treatment of women with respect. We didn't have a grievance committee to air our personal differences before the body of people. Of course, drugs and alcohol, that was mentioned last night. And lastly was the morality issue. I think if we had paid attention to a lot of moral issues, things would have been a lot tighter. That's it.
Thank you very much, Ericka, and I have to apologize to Artie because I screwed up the way it was, the order, but I'm going to introduce you now, okay? Artie McMillan, I'm not used to her new name, was formerly Artie Seale, Bobby Seale's ex-wife. I met Artie when she came to New Haven to see about Bobby with her little bad son, Malik. And Malik was terrorized New Haven.
Yes, he was. Malik and Chroma Staggerly Seal.
Right on. And I'd like to see him again because I understand he's 25 now.
Yes, he started to come down this evening.
And,
but he thought he needed to see a babe first.
All right. So Artie was secretary of National Black Panther headquarters and worked at the Berkley Mental Health Services. And without further ado, Artie.
Okay, thank you. First, I really, really appreciate the fact that I haven't seen these sisters in many, many, many years. And last night we met up and they asked me, would I please join this panel tonight? And I really appreciate it. Thank you both. And thank everybody. Yeah. I first want to say that my name is misspelled in the program. It's not McWilliams, it's McMillan. I've used this name for quite some time now. It helps me get jobs a little bit better than using my ex-husband's name. I met Bobby at the age of 17 when I graduated from Berkeley High School and I started Merritt College because my parents told me I had to go to college. They also told me I had to be a music instructor or a professional musician. Classical music was their preference. You know, parents have a tendency to pick your friends and tell you what you're going to do for the rest of your life. And I was a little bit tired of it all. I was not allowed to date. I was not allowed to go to my senior prom, and I was not allowed to use the telephone or look at TV. I had to practice my piano lessons before I went to school, when I came home from school, and do my homework, and that was it. That was my daily thing.
And we had the same parents.
Yeah, we should have. You know, that's another thing. I feel that, you know, a lot of the women that joined this organization years ago must have had about similar problems, you know, either spousal problems, you know, with overbearing people, you know, in their life, you know, and they're trying to be independent. Maybe this is why a lot of, you know, the women joined. In my case, I married Bobby thinking he was a 9-to-5 person. And, but I'll back up a little bit. I was very naive. I was very sheltered. So therefore, as a matter of fact, I'll tell you something here. It's embarrassing, but I'm going to tell you. I had to take this exam in order to get into Merritt College. And I was very naive, okay. 3 days later, a counselor called me into his office and asked me to sit down and talk with him concerning my test scores. And he told me, he says, I really don't know how to tell you this, Miss McMillan, but you know, your test scores show that you're sort of naive. And I thought that was such a pretty word. I said, oh, thank you. You know, I just, you know, and I felt so bad later on when I looked the word up. Yeah, but I'm trying to give you an idea. I laugh to this day about that. The guy just looked at me. It was really funny. Okay, I typed on my working hours my notes for this evening's meeting, and I'm going to do a little bit of reading, and I'll say a few things here and there, because it's easier to do this, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, I will tell you, I truly did not fit the role of a Black Panther Party woman, as I was naive and totally apolitical. I came from a very strict environment, which I've told you about, and to me, the ideal Black Panther Party woman, or the woman who thought she was ideal, came later in the organization as she tried to conform to the rules and regulations, the 10-point platform, outdoor sister comrades, and if necessary, bring charges up on another to confirm her identity. We only had a handful of these type of people. These sisters here came in very early in the Black Panther Party. We had a struggle selling Black Panther newspapers. We had to pull watch with AR-15s. These guns were about as big as we were. We were starving to death half the time. We had to do the same things as these brothers do. Also, our voices weren't heard. It was a very male chauvinistic oriented organization at the time. In fact, these gentlemen didn't even know how to spell the word chauvinism, unfortunately. It was a growing period for all of us. It was a stepping stone. And I just hope that the younger generation here looks upon this. We had our faults and we had our good points, so that they can do better in life. I will go on to say that after my marriage, my role was basically as a homemaker, and I was to stay in the background. I cooked and I cleaned and I washed clothes and took care of our son, Malik, who at that time of the Black Panther Party inception was 5 months old, in 1965. I had an opportunity to meet Huey Newton in 1965 when he was released from jail on a charge that was neither here nor there. He was a nervous, bright, and an energetic individual who, even though was said to be psychotic or neurotic by others, still took a stance in saying we deserve equal treatment. While Bobby and Huey were meeting at my then mother-in-law's home back in 1965, this is the funny thing here. Bobby and Huey would go back into a back room and they would sit there for hours and they would talk about, well, what can we do to do this? Let's write this down, let's write this down. And we'll have Artie type it up, because, you know, the woman has to type it up. Okay. They would sit there and Bobby would say to Huey, he said, well, why don't you become the Minister of Defense and I'll be the chairman? Huey said, no, why don't you be the Minister of Defense and I'll be the chairman? And this would go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, you know. It was funny. Over the years, I observed the news media concentrate on the male role, which depicts the leaders in a negative way and basically ignores the strength that the black woman brought to this organization. We have always been the backbone without the acknowledgement. We played different roles. We were our men's whores. We were their cheerleaders. We were their cooks. We were their psychiatrists, their babysitters. Being there at the grassroots, though, I saw loved ones and associates destroyed by the oppressing government. through such agencies as the FBI, the news media, and the CIA. I survived this. Even though there were a lot of internal problems that helped to defeat the basic platform of the Black Panther Party and also allowed the government to infiltrate the Black Panther Party, we still have to look and realize that the desire of education and advancement of minorities and blacks still have to be addressed and continued on. I also want to say that coming from such a strict environment as I did, whatever role I had in the Black Panther Party was truly a learning and sometimes frightening experience. I want to thank God for seeing me through these hard times and in keeping my children and myself safe from harm. And I also want to thank all of you young individuals that are here tonight for being here. And you are showing that the efforts of the Black Panther Party was not in vain. Thank you again.
I can't help but want to comment very briefly on one of Artie's remarks and about the chauvinism in the party. The way I dealt with it was I lasted about 4 months in the collective in New Haven, and the chauvins ran me right out of it. And but I didn't quit working for the Panther Party. I just got a job. I worked for Gary, and so I had an income, an independent income, and I got a decent apartment, a large enough one to accommodate all the Panthers that were still going to live with me. And I proceeded to function independently. The only difference between not being a bona fide Panther and being independent of the party, working for the party, was that I was my own boss. So that's the way I dealt with that. It's true that the sisters really were the backbone of the party. The sisters, I can recall, I was a breakfast program coordinator while I was in the collective, and I would get up at 4:45 in the morning, and it was pretty easy to arouse the sisters and get them moving, but getting the brothers to move out at that time of the morning to feed children was not easy. And very often we'd be in there cooking for the kids and serving the kids, and we'd look around, and we had the breakfast program in a teen hall, and the brothers would be out there playing pool and lounging around. Some of them would be catching some Z's back there, you know, on the QT. But the sisters were, with rare exceptions, and one exception that comes automatically to my mind was a young brother named Twyman Myers. And Twyman Myers was a young blood out of New York. He was only 19. I was 30 at the time. I was an old Panther. And don't ask how old I am now. But Twyman Myers was a faithful brother who would get up in the morning. He lived in my pad. We had Panther collectives, which meant when you joined the party, you turned over your apartment. I had an apartment, and I had a little piece of car, a struggle buggy, and that became Panther property, and so did my apartment. Everybody sacrificed, and we shared everything that we had. We practiced socialism in the party. And Twyman Myers was one of the young brothers, one of the rare few who was non-chauvinistic. He was a good, beautiful brother who would work very hard. We'd leaflet together and so forth and so on. And he would get up easily to go feed kids and work very hard while he was there. There was no task that he was above doing. And most of you, I'm sure, have never heard of Twyman Myers. However, the way I learned about the fate of this young brother ultimately was in 1973. I read in the New York Times, I was out here by then, I knew that he had gone underground with the BLA, the Black Liberation Army, in the military wing of the Black Panther Party. And the way I learned about his fate was that he was machine gunned to death at the age of 21 years old on the streets of New York City. But Twyman Myers was certainly not the only victim of repression of the Black Panther Party. By 1969, 28 Panthers had been murdered by the police. COINTELPRO was on its job, and by 1973, numerous others had been shot and killed. And before I get too carried away, let me introduce the next panelist and try to get this right. Sheba Haven, a good sister whom I had the pleasure of meeting just recently. We were working together briefly, and she was the founder of the George Jackson People's Free Health Clinic and is a medical assistant in the AIDS clinic. and she's a very strong revolutionary sister, and it's my pleasure to introduce her.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to thank you for being here again tonight. I was here also last night. As Kiulu said, I think Majida is the only sister that I knew when I was in the party. I've met Kiulu and Belva since, and just had the pleasure of meeting Ericka and Artie. I came into the party from the BSU at Castlemont High School in Oakland, where I was co-chair of the BSU. I organized various demonstrations and walkouts, and did organizing in the high school, and that's how I came into the party. I was recruited out of the BSU into the Black Panther Party. And I spoke a little bit last night about that time. The war in Vietnam was going on. There were riots in the black community. There was a lack of education that related to black people directly. There was a lot of lies being told about the history of this country and the history of the world in general. Tonight, the sisters asked me to speak a little bit about chauvinism, the first thing that existed within the party and how I encountered it. The first thing that I would say is that as a black woman, my relationship to chauvinism within the struggle is probably very much fundamentally different than that of white women. Black women have always, from day one, been involved in the struggle for black liberation. We have not had to struggle against black men to be free. We have had to struggle against a European power structure. Our men became chauvinists as they encountered and assimilated the values of the European power structure. I say that in preface to talking about chauvinism, because in Africa, women were not regarded as the curse of the earth as they were in the Judeo-Christian ethic. When I ran the clinic, I would occasionally encounter a brother that would say, "Oh, no, what do you say because you're a sister?" And I would say, "Well, you can talk to me, or you can talk to Mr. Smith and Mr. Wesson." And very often, they talked to me. And at that point, Huey called me up and told me that I was promoted to the rank of the lieutenant because I couldn't be threatening to shoot the comrades every 5 minutes. So that's how I became a lieutenant. And that is to say that I refused to deal with chauvinism as something that was valid to deal with. The needs of the people were more important than somebody insulting me because I was a woman. I was not in the struggle because I was a woman. I was in the struggle because I was a person of African descent that was being oppressed because I was a person of African descent. If I had been a man, I would have been facing the same oppression. The other thing is that that chauvinism did play a very real role as being demoralizing. Once again, we have to go back to the culture. The sisters, all of us, have been raised in a culture that is chauvinistic and racist. And I think that it's impossible to live in the ocean without getting wet. So many women took on the character of, if you're challenged by a man, you stand down. I would criticize people who refuse to struggle because of chauvinism as not being bold enough and not recognizing that our struggle is not against chauvinism, it's against worldwide domination by people who are basically greedy. They don't care whether you're a woman or a man. They care about resources, they care about money, they care about power, they care about control. Today, we have women who are being sent to the battlefront in a neo-colonial war of aggression. So we have to remember what the struggle is against. If we start struggling against one another, the struggle is lost. I had occasion recently, because I've been working on the Black Panther Party newspaper committee. We're again coming out with an edition of the paper, a memorial issue, and we're going to bring that to be a regular publication, and you'll see a flyer outside that asks you to participate in making this happen. And we're asking that you participate in making this happen because the conditions which existed then exist now, only they're much more exacerbated. You have a much higher incidence of drugs in the black community, and those drugs are there for a reason. They're there so that the white, or not the white, but the moneyed power structure can maintain control. They don't want you struggling. They'd rather have you smoking a pipe than working to defeat infant mortality or AIDS or ill health among the elderly or the lack of housing for hundreds of thousands of people in this country. They'd rather have you arguing about chauvinism than trying to feed people and trying to clothe people. So these things exist for reasons, and we really have to look beyond the immediate affront to the reasoning behind the affront being there, and transcend that if we're going to have any lasting effect. And I think that the Black Panther Party offered women an opportunity to transcend that. There's 2 women here that were lieutenants. There's a sister here that was OD. We had the opportunity to transcend that chauvinism and still work. Now, for me, that caused me more problems after I left the party than while I was in it, because apolitical men cannot understand that you will not back down until they are confronted with that and they have to get out the way. And I really appreciate the party for giving me the opportunity to be a Panther, which is to flex, to know my own strength. I think that there was no organization that could have afforded me that opportunity, certainly not the NAACP. So I want to invite you to pick that up, and that flyer that I'm telling you about the paper, to participate in that, and to continue to struggle. If you run up against chauvinism in your struggles, I'm talking to the sisters, stand up against it. Don't allow yourself to be cowed about it. There was never a black Cinderella, so you don't have to read the Cinderella complex. You need to read the words of Sojourner Truth. You need to read about the life of Harriet Tubman. You can read some of Angela's writings. I mean, there are role models for you out there. And no offense to the National Organization of Women, but you need to ignore some of what they're saying. And that's basically what I have to say about chauvinism. Treat it the same way you treat racism, and keep moving forward.
We've got to move right along here. Our next speaker is Majida Rahman. Am I saying that correctly? Majida was the founder of the first Black Panther Party school in Oakland, and I sent my own son all the way out here from New Haven.
Bad too.
And they put up with him and looked out for him. She is also currently the project director of the Healthy Babies Clinic. Healthy Babies Project. Director of the Healthy, right. And Majida Rahman.
I want to hear all power to the people. Let's say it a little loud. All power to the people. All power to the people. Yeah, I like hearing that. I had one of the easiest easiest jobs in the party, I think. I had the opportunity to work with the loved ones, the little children. I came from a little town called Stockton, California. Most of you probably have never heard of it. But I was working at the University of Pacific, and as a student, I started picking up the Black Panther newspaper from San Francisco, delivering it to Stockton and to UC Davis to really get involved. After I graduated, the night I graduated from the University of Pacific, I drove up to Berkley. It was wild. Can you imagine moving from a country town with cows and horses and then moving to an area where people were running around mad and crazy and the police was crazy and guns were going all wild? I said, oh, I got to join this group. This is going to be fun. I worked for a while as a legal secretary also with Charles Gary, so I became very familiar with a lot of the cases. And I think that's what really turned me in the right direction. I was going to law school at night, and I really had this big dream of becoming a lawyer. After reading the cases, going to court, checking out how the judges and the public defenders and all the other folks was dealing with the black folks, I decided that was not my calling card. So one day I was at Charles Gary's office. David Hillier called me on the phone and said, hey, we need you. You got to get over here and work with these children. There's no one available to work with them. We heard you had skills, so come on. I was glad he called me because when I arrived, I was able to set up a school almost overnight. Children from all over was able to come in and participate in the school, even on an international level. What I really loved about the school, it was a collective position. All the children worked together as a unit. It didn't really matter if your father was the chief of staff or the lieutenant or whatever. We were all one-on-one. We had no funds for that school. The children and I went door to door. We sold newspapers. We sold dinners. Sold plenty of gumbo and spaghetti. I hate gumbo and spaghetti now. Matter of fact, I have become a vegetarian because we cooked so much during the party. But I went and put the school together. We had uniforms, and if most of you can remember, recently 2 schools in West Oakland has decided to require the children wear uniforms because the children are so crazy these days behind these Nikes and all these other things. So they decided to institute that issue also, and I think it's a very good solution to just in terms of children respecting each other, and some of that violence may be reduced. Most of the children that I meet now on the street, we hug each other, they remember me. Most of them are scientists, teachers, lawyers. Most of them are still in school working on their master's, their PhD. The children are brilliant. They learned a lot from us, we learned a lot from them. Because of my networking skills and my legal skills, not only did I work for the institution of Intercommunal Institute, I also spent a lot of time doing legal advice, working with the prisoners, going into San Quentin, Santa Rita, Folsom, Vacaville. I even traveled to New York because I felt that a lot of brothers and sisters were just left there with no protection, no money for stamps. So a group of sisters got together and we made sure that those resources were available for the brothers. We were able to get a lot of those brothers out of jail, but to this day, a lot of them still remain there. One brother, Geronimo Pratt, has been there for over 20 years. There's a group of brothers in New York that's still in jail, and we need to work very hard to make sure these brothers are released. Their bodies are very important, I think, for our total security and for our total survival in America. What I enjoyed the most was the Breakfast with Children program. Can you imagine a child going to school in the morning with no food, with no meals, with no clothes, just bare pieces of materials? That was one good thing that I thought the Black Panther Party did. We collected a lot of goods, a lot of toys, a lot of clothes, a lot of food. I remember one time I was in San Francisco, and we were going to a lot of the liquor stores and the grocery stores requesting food. And of course, a lot of stores did not want to give up donations to the Black Panther Party. But I think during our time, we had a way of looking at folks. Okay? Sometimes we'd have to even open our mouth, and we got those donations, and that helped a lot. We were able to serve over 280,000 children on a daily basis throughout this country for the Breakfast with Children program. And to this day, there's a very strong Breakfast with Children program right now throughout the United States through the USDA. And they took that idea for the Black Panther Party. Because I was so involved in nutrition in the Breakfast School program, I decided to go to school and get my degree in nutrition. Presently, I am a nutrition coordinator and supervisor for a University of California special program called Expanded Food Nutrition Education Program. All of the creative ideas that I have established, I learned them through the Black Panther Party. I do believe if it was not for the Black Panther Party, I would not have the skills today that I have been able to use to organize other programs. Last May, many of the sisters sitting here, and I see a couple of the other brothers in the audience, we all got together and formed an organization called the Healthy Babies Project. We were very concerned about the high infant mortality rate in our town. Oakland right now has the second highest infant mortality rate in the nation. It's real sad. It's like the third highest infant mortality, low birth weight. Money is all over. Very few things are being done. This group of ex-Black Panthers and other community people who are very concerned about infant mortality came together on a small grant of $7,000. We were able to see over 150 women, get them into care, make sure they were receiving their WIC, food stamps, Medi-Cal. We even give them a ride to the hospital or to their doctor's appointment. Keep in mind, these are ex-Panthers who are still doing their community activities, still making sure that the babies in our town are still being taken care of. And I am really proud that I had an opportunity to work with so many wonderful, strong brothers and sisters to keep me strong, to continue to do the things that I think is necessary for our survival. To this day, because we are so bad and so cool and so together, we were awarded a $1.8 million grant to open. You know, crack is all around us. I remember very clearly when I was in the party that there was no drugs, no alcohol. None of that was supposed to be taking place while you were working. And we were very careful about that. Today, crack is throughout our community. With this $1 million, we will be able to set up, we have already set up, a 6-bed residential center for pregnant women and women who have children under 3. We have, in the process of setting up another home, a 20-bed facility for women who are on drugs, alcohol. We have also set up a center called the John George Recovery Center. Please come and visit us. We need plenty of more donations. And we will be working with over 200 women who have drug and alcohol problems. The most beautiful part of this whole system that we have set up, we have been able to get 90 lease housing certificates for these women, because we know the homeless situation in Alameda County is the strangest and the craziest thing in the world. When you have houses locked up, boarded up, no one living in them, it is really insane that you have pregnant women walking around, living in parks with no place to stay. These 90 certificates will be able to place these women in a leased housing facility. They will be able to go and locate their own home. And this new grant will pay almost 90% of their housing needs. And I think that's really great. The party taught us all these ideas, taught us how to organize. I have a group of women who run a project in Acorn, which is one of the highest drug areas in our community. We have trained AFDC women who are going door to door, locating pregnant women who are on drugs to make sure that they are in care and receive all the care that they need. Finally, I have experienced a lot of negative things in the party. But I think the positive outweighs the negative. I was able to meet some strong brothers and sisters. I was able to learn a lot of excellent skills that I've been able to use on my job and in the community. And I've also been able to share those with other people. I just want to tell you to keep up the hard work. The struggle will never stop. It will continue. You just keep on working with it. Thank you.
you, Majida. And last but not least, I'm very pleased to be able to introduce Belva Butcher. And before I give you the credentials written on this flyer, I just have to say that we were able to reunite again after 21 years. Belva is a sister that turned me on to the Black Panther Party in New Haven when she came to what amounted to a town meeting to introduce New Haven to the idea of a free breakfast program for children. And she was so dynamic with her young self and so full of fire and energy and spirit that she was just a tremendous inspiration to me. And it wasn't long before I was part of the Panther Women, and very proud to say so. Belva Butcher is was assistant to the Black Panther Party Central Committee. She's an engineer and community health worker at Highland Hospital, and it's my great pleasure to introduce you to her. Belva Butcher.
Keeping with the tradition of old, I must ask the eldest among us, as well as the youngest among us, for permission to continue. Be that granted without interruption. I'd like to say, first of all, first giving honor to to Ra, Jehovah, God, Yahweh, Shango, whoever that one supreme being may be called by whomever. To thank the Supreme for we gathering here today. My name is Belva Butcher. As stated by Sister Ericka earlier, we use aliases to cover ourselves and to keep ourselves alive. I say my name is Belva Butcher, a.k.a. Sister Love, a.k.a. Barbara McGriff. First of all, I'd like to read a poem, and excuse me should I stutter. Black Mother. Black Mother, I must confess that I still breathe. Though you are not yet free, what could justify my crying start? Forgive my coward's heart. But blame me not, the sleepless me, for I have just awakened from a deep, deep sleep. And I be hazed and dazed and scared, and vapors fester in my hair. Black Mother, I curse the dragged years, the rape, the heartbreaks, the sweat and tears. But this cannot redeem the fact. You cried in pain, I turned my back. I ran into the mire's fog and watched while you were dogged. I died 1,000 deaths, but I swear on sage night and gloom, a rose I wear to honor you. And when I fall, the rose in hand, I'll be free. You'll be free and I a man. For a slave of natural death who dies can't balance out to 2 dead flies. I'd rather be without the shame, a bullet lodged within my brain. If I were not to reach my goal, let bleeding cancer torment my soul. We give all praises to our Prentice Bunchy Carter, fallen warrior, writer of the poem. At the age of 17, first of all, I was a labor pain in the city of Berkeley. Not only were I born in my mother's front bedroom, along with my sister, We had a family doctor who came out and did deliveries, Dr. William Burnett. I was raised throughout the city. And the racism that I experienced in the coming up within this city didn't frighten me, it made me strong, made me want to fight back. Before I even saw or heard or cast my eyes upon the television screen to watch the city of Harlem, New York burn to cinders, to watch Martin Luther King and Malcolm X be tormented by the power structure, I had already decided to revolt. My mother and I, we went door to door. We were responsible for, along with our community members, in organizing our neighborhoods and focusing on political campaigns in the area. And today, we find the same Republicans that refused to have some of the first black representatives come to the city of Berkeley running Republicans for the mayor as well as city councils. At the age of 16, I lost my mother 2 days after my birthday. I was introduced to the Soulful Strings Painted Black. I was introduced to John Coltrane. I was introduced to jazz syncopation, and I always knew the blues. This, I focused, as Ericka did, on the music because it was the music that was creatively responsible for the development of a consciousness. As I started trying to get out of high school, I was at Berkeley High. I was a young teen mother. My oldest son, Malik McGriff, was named after Malcolm X because on the labor, when I was in labor, my sister said, "Girl, stop hollering, oh Lord. You better say, yo, Malcolm." So I was pregnant when I joined the party and met Ericka. And then after I had the baby and I joined the Black Panther Party. I carried my baby everywhere with me. I did not put my child down. At the time I joined the party members collectively helped me with my child. I was trained. And I wasn't trained, I was educated. And the reason why I say that I was educated and not trained is because when you educate, you actively participate in the development of consciousness. You could train a dog to put on a dress, stand on 2 feet, and twirl around in a little circle. We were not trained, we were politically educated. We knew the nature of who we were and who the community was, are, that we're serving, even today. At that time, I was well versed with the party line. The 10-point platform and program was much in parallel with my innate philosophy. As I recall my feelings I had during this period, I was perturbed, highly perturbed, at the white racist power structure. They killed little Bobby Hutton. They murdered 3 brothers in L.A. in a gas station trying to pull over and get gas, and it was like the wanton murders and killing and degrading of our African American community as it is today. Nothing's changed. In the party, I worked selling Black Panther papers, but selling Black Panther papers wasn't, would you like to buy a Black Panther paper? It would say, can I introduce you to the Black Panther Party? No. Well, let me do it anyway. You know, because what we had was life. I felt that we were giving the community life. We were giving them blood. We were giving them oxygen to their problems. I was politically educated in Berkeley and transferred to San Francisco, and then from San Francisco, I worked with the Red Guard, and I worked with the martial arts classes. We used to hold martial arts classes at the Winter Ballroom, also at the Fillmore. I worked as a field organizer when I moved into East Oakland. My specific area was to organize and develop the needs of the people in the Tassafarenga projects located at 85th Avenue below E Street. This was one of the most oppressed communities in this part of East Oakland. I also worked in the San Antone projects, also in Haven Court projects. I was, after earning the rank of a field lieutenant, because during this era, COINTELPRO started moving in on the party, killing and imprisoning all of the Central Committee, and the Central Committee backed up. They called the women into action, into organizing action. I became a field lieutenant, moved to New Haven, Connecticut, and the same, like last night, the brothers were explaining that we were sent out in the community and we were asked. We were to ask the community what their needs were at the time. Using this organizational tool, I went into New Haven, Connecticut from Berkley. Never seen a ghetto or a seriously oppressed African American or oppressed European American or oppressed Latin American community in my life. I saw rats, child, it was so big I had to shut my eyes. It looked like possums. I didn't know roaches could fly. And I walked into the community houses without a flimmer or a nose turned up. And I offered myself as a servant of the people. I, as field lieutenant, had to show the troops how to go out and become comfortable, because in New Haven, Connecticut, there was an area where the community, it was a like downtrodden community on one side, and on the other side was the black bourgeoisie. So you had to educate the black bourgeoisie on how to go into the community, serve the community, and keep your nose from twitching. So this was one of the things I did in New Haven, Connecticut, as well as Mount Vernon, New York, as well as Harlem, New York. I was sent to Bed-Stuy, and I was also sent to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where I spent most of my time and most of my years. I was responsible for along with working with the Central Committee. At that point, it was Zay Shakur who was in charge, and may the spirits rest his soul, and may his spirit be with us tonight. He was massacred along with others in a van traveling from Philadelphia to New York on the New Jersey Turnpike. Zayd and I set up the Revolutionary Black Jazz Festival, where we started getting revolutionary black jazz musicians involved in the Black Panther Party, involved in the movement, coming out and being responsible through their music for organizing. Some of those musicians were like Betty Carter, McCoy Turner, Cal Massey, Archie Shepp, Pharoah Saunders, just to name a few. We also organized the Revolutionary People's Constitutional Convention in the city of Philadelphia. We're sitting at a Central Committee meeting, and we said, well, what should we do? I said, well, the Constitution never included us. So this is our hour. You know, the hour to seize the time and take command. We decided to rewrite the Constitution to include the needs of the people, and some of the issues that we brought up are in some of these old articles. In organizing the Black Panther Party in the city of Philadelphia, I was responsible for lecturing at Yale. I did some lectures at Yale up in New Haven. I did lectures at Princeton University. I lectured at Penn State University, Ogons, and University Park, PA, University of Pennsylvania. I organized at Temple University, and also one of the largest population of students came out of West Philadelphia, where the University of Penn was. I organized and helped to structure the black student unions in these areas. But like I said before, the primary task was the community and making sure that the community was behind us all the way. I was arrested, and I believe it was some of the things that happened to me. I would begin to start talking because they're family things, and I strongly believe in the sayings and teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad plus Malcolm X. You keep your family business behind closed doors. So if any questions should come up after this panel, if it's family business, don't expect for it to be answered. Also, in closing, the Black Panther Party for self-defense was truly a party for self-defense. We were truly the emancipators. We were responsible for the second emancipation era during the 60s. We laid our lives down. We laid our families down. We laid our careers down. We ended up going back to school at an old age, and I was sitting up in engineering school, the oldest one in the class, but the only woman. And my family, my husband, and my children were responsible for putting me through school and were responsible for me retaining my sanity. And I am a little crazy still. Thank you for your ear.
Sister Love. Now I remember what we used to call you. Sister Love. All right. Since she brought it up, and I came prepared, I'm going to read just a very brief passage before I open up the Q&A period. But you, while I'm reading this, please get your questions ready, because they're going to be, cards will be circulated. All you have to do is raise your hand, and Sumi is ready with the cards to pass to you so that you can write your questions down. And while she's doing that, I'm going to turn to a page and read something that is so applicable today that it's even more applicable today than it was when it was written by Black Panthers back in around 1970. And I'm referring to the Revolutionary People's Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia that Belva, our sister love, just referred to. The hour is late. The hour is late, and the situation is desperate. As a nation, America is now in the middle of the greatest crisis in its history. The Black Panther Party believes that the American people are capable of rising to the task which history has laid before the nation. We therefore call for a Revolutionary People's Constitutional Convention to be convened by the American people to write a new constitution that will guarantee and deliver to every American citizen the inviolable human right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We call upon the American people to rise up, repudiate, and restrain the forces of fascism that are now rampant in the land and which are the only real obstacles standing between us and a national resolution of the national crisis. We believe that black people are not the only group within America that stands in need of a new constitution. Other oppressed ethnic groups, the youth of America, women, young men who are slaughtered as cannon fodder in mad, avaricious wars of aggression, our neglected elderly, and I added, and handicapped, people all have an interest in a new constitution that will guarantee us a society in which human rights are supreme and justice is assured to every man, woman, and child within its jurisdiction. For it is only through this means that America as a nation can live together in peace and our brothers and sisters the world over. Only through this means can the present character of America, the purveyor of exploitation, misery, death, and wanton destruction all over the planet Earth, be changed. And since I haven't gotten any questions yet, I'll take the liberty of talking some more. And I would like to point out to you that there are still brothers and sisters incarcerated in concentration camps throughout this country who were on the front lines of the struggle in the 60s and early 70s. I think it is frankly quite disgraceful that we as a nation refuse to recognize our political prisoners. Countries all over the world recognize, peoples all over the world recognize their political prisoners. Campaigns in South Africa freed Nelson Mandela and countless other political prisoners, and they're still struggling to liberate political prisoners. We in America refuse to remember and refuse to communicate with, refuse to support brothers and sisters who put their lives on the line for us. Brothers like Geronimo G. Jaga Pratt. 20 years now he is incarcerated in these California concentration camps. Ruchell McGee is still being tortured. Hugo Pinell is still being tortured. Mumia Abu Jamal, a former Panther and a black journalist, is facing the death penalty in Pennsylvania. The New York Three, Tony Bottom, also known as Jaleel, Herman Bell, and Noah Washington, 3 Black Panther Party stalwart warriors who also put their lives on the line. The Queens Two, Leonard Peltier, an American Indian who struggled with the American Indian movement, Susan Rosenberg and Marilyn Buck. And there are countless others. I can't recall them all here, and the questions are coming. And I just ask you to please free Geronimo, free the New York Three, free all political prisoners. The first question is, can you give a little information on the Healthy Babies Project, where it is, and how we can get in touch? Majida?
That's a real good question. Easy one, too. We have several locations. I guess the main one would be 3229 Elm Street. It's near Mayor Peralta Hospital. The phone number is 835-BABY. That's a good one. And 596-4131.
I'll try to repeat the numbers.
835-2229
835-2229.
or 591-4131.
591-4131. Okay.
Does that mean you're going to send us $1 million? 500,000?
Are the Black Panther schools still opened? If so, where are they located? I think that's a no. Is that correct? Okay. Ooh, this is a long one. We know that the Panthers dealt with police repression in the community very directly. Then the police were a very obviously imperial presence, being all white in black communities. How would you suggest people deal, in quotes, with the even more repressive police forces today, even though large numbers of women and, quote, I have to say quote unquote minorities because I don't believe in that word, are among their ranks?
I'd like to just address that question. Number one, the fascist force have always existed in the black community. They have always been repressive, and throughout our history as today, there's always been repressive moves against us. We are fast becoming a nation moving in the direction of extinction at this point. The question brings about fact. The presence of the police just a few days ago in the Acorn Community Project, there was one brother who was a recreation center attendant who's been responsible for educating and the development of the minds of the youth in that area through service type programs also. The police came through the community, high-speed chase. The brother said, please slow down. You're in front of this community center. There's children playing. The 2-foot police, and I have no idea how many others, beat the brother half to death. Didn't even take him to the hospital, take him directly to jail. So this force has to be dealt with by the students in the room, be they black, white, Latin American. We, the people of the natural order, which is what the European Americans consider American Indians, they need to come out into the community because there exists a need for organization in the community. And you can't organize in an Eiffel Tower, in the ivory towers. You have to be in the community. You have to create a presence. That's why the Healthy Babies Project, I don't care what anyone say, creates a presence of organization in the community. And through this vehicle, the community have to come out and take control of their own community. See, when we were organizing the Black Panther Party, we were the police force. When the brothers and sisters in Philly, if the brother was going to beat his wife on a Sunday morning after he had a weekend drunk, then the wife would call the Black Panther Party headquarters. And we would go down into the community, take the brother, and deal with this family problem. We believed in keeping the problems within the community. We had set up projects and programs. You go into your library and you read, you research on community control of the police. That's why they smashed the Black Panther Party, because the racist, redneck Peckerwoods wouldn't have had a chance.
This is directed to Sister Sheba. In the era of a new recognition of the divisions between African American men and women, in other words, the black man's guide to understanding the woman, where do we begin mending?
Oh, y'all would ask me. I had started a poem that I didn't bring with me, and it was called A Poem for a Revolutionary Woman. And it's a poem that started, it said, oh, how does it go? Well, anyway, I'll just say this. Shahrazad Ali does not know me. The woman never envisioned a woman that is self-disciplined. She talks about training women, that men should train women to behave the way that men believe women should act. Now, Belva already told you what training is, that you can train a dog. So I know that many people disagree with me, but I think that that book is inflammatory, that it's written at a time when we have, I think it's 3/4 of all black families headed by black women. When she's talking about the relationship between black men and black women, I think the woman should be talking about getting some of these black men out of jail. Getting some of these black men and women off of drugs. Like I said before, when we start struggling against each other, we are distracted from the true struggle. And I hope that I never have the bad fortune to meet the woman, because I don't know if I could restrain myself, because even now, I was first introduced to the book in New York City. I was there to talk about the Black Panther Party newspaper coming out. And the sister said, look, and she showed me the book. She said, the sisters are really upset about this book. And then a long conversation about chauvinism ensued. And I didn't get to read the book until I got back to the flea market in Berkley. And I'm one of those Evelyn Wood babies. I came up through the Upward Bound program. I got to learn how to speed read in the 8th grade. So I'm standing in the flea market reading this book, and I had about 10 people come by and say, Sheba, people had to hit me because I couldn't take my face off the pages. Now, a woman that will say that if you're working to take care of your family, you're in error, I think is in error herself. A woman who will say that if you have dreadlocks, you're nasty, is in error. A woman that says that there hasn't been a decent woman a decent African American woman, a decent woman of African descent for the last 6,000 years does not know nothing about Nzinga, does not know nothing about Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman, and she don't know jack shit about me. Vegeta, Galva, Artie, Vegeta, and I would think most of the women in this room. Now, if you are fortunate enough to have a man in 1990 in America that can support your family without your help, you are fortunate indeed, and you are indeed a minority. I will say minority on that. I think that it is irresponsible to tell women that they should not seek an education, that they are somehow disrespecting black men if they seek an education, because we know that the race will not be advanced without knowledge. I was reading Malcolm X, like I said, in preparation for this event. And in the speech, before the speech on worldwide revolution, Malcolm made a comment that you can tell the African countries that have had a revolution because they are the countries that educate their women. I have a lot more respect for El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz than I ever will have for Scheherazade Ali. I think that the woman named herself Scheherazade and told 1,001 tales is sufficient enough.
Thank you, Sheba. Ditto. The next question is, what did the role of the Free Huey Newton campaign play in the movement? Did it take energy away from organizing, contribute to it? Any lessons for us to learn? Who wants to tackle that one?
Okay, I'm sorry. Can you repeat that again?
I'd like to tackle it if you and nobody else does. What did the role of the Free Huey Newton campaign play in the movement? Did it take energy away from organizing, contribute to it? Any lessons for us to learn?
I think that the role, I think that contribute to the role of, basically, a lot of black men and women never heard of us before, or were afraid to deal with us until they saw us out there, dealing with a black man that had been railroaded, and a person who would not be go into submission about his beliefs. I think that it was an educational opportunity for a lot of people, young people in the school districts. Insofar as that we let people know about our other activities, such as our health clinics, such as our Breakfast for School Children programs, and about the good lawyers we had too. I don't know if anyone else wants to comment on this any further.
Well, I would like to.
Okay.
The Free Huey movement actually introduced me to the Black Panther Party because I was on the East Coast and the Panthers were on the West Coast, so I didn't really begin to hear much about the Black Panther Party until the Free Huey movement was underway, and the newspapers were full of the incident where Huey was defending himself against a police officer and wound up shot, and the police officer wound up dead. Huey and the posters of Huey and Bobby standing there with guns thrilled me to my soul at the time. I was a young woman, and I was so sick and tired of John Wayne and Roy Rogers, I didn't know what to do. And I was also sick and tired of the media images of Step and Fetch It and all these other, Uncle Tom images that we were unfortunate enough to be subjected to in the 50s when I was a teenager. So when they came along and they were two black men that were propagated across this country as standing up to the man, I was very, very proud of them. The Free Huey movement galvanized the movement in this country for change. I think that it contributed a great deal to the organizing capacity of the peoples of this country, not just black people, because everyone joined the Free Huey movement. I never saw so many people come together in one time, to raise their clenched fists and shout, "Free Huey." And Bobby, the Free Huey campaign motivated us, inspired us to struggle for the freedom of all the other brothers and sisters who were being incarcerated and railroaded at the time. So it sparked the political prisoners movement. I think the only thing that might have happened that was negative as a result of the Free Huey campaign was perhaps in the process of we tended to develop a cult of personality around Huey himself. And we tended to put the brother on such a high pedestal that it was inevitable that he would suffer a fall. And that is the only negative that I can think of that came out. And if anybody else on the panel would like to add to that. Tarika?
Well, adding to what you were just saying, the party just grew overnight. I mean, it was not confined to the Bay Area, it just spread all over the country. And I know that we weren't prepared to handle all that heavy load. And so, but it also escalated the police attacks on our local offices. They attacked the offices in Berkley, in Oakland, in West Oakland. I remember I painted a mural the office that we opened in West Oakland. On the back of the wall, a brother with a gun in his hand. They shot up, just tore into that office that night. Think that there was somebody standing back there with a gun, but brought the police more attention to us. They started patrolling us, following us everywhere we went, and so it did escalate. The FBI involvement, full force on everyone. But it was okay because we survived and did something about it.
Okay. Let's see.
I'd like to also mention that the Free Huey, the whole situation of Huey P. Newton going to jail for a violation of Huey P. Newton's constitutional right to bear arms, have to be taken into consideration and continue to be focused upon at this point. Huey P. Newton's plight, the whole struggle of the police brutality and arresting brothers on trumped-up charges that could not stick, it was a perfect case of police brutality and a wanton oppression and brutality on the black community. Here we go back to the question on the police brutality. So most all black men can identify with Huey P. Newton. You know, I think that Landon Williams had explained it. If you were walking down the street with your books in your hand and you was a black man and and it's the same today, they want to arrest you, you will be arrested if you don't take, hike, and run. And if you run, then of course you lay a chance of being shot in the back. See, the police attack the youth like they do in all struggles. In El Salvador, in South America, in the Middle East, where there's problems, and everywhere. The Vietnam, little babies were picking up the gun, and the babies were the ones that were being killed. So you have to also understand how the escalation of the Free Huey movement, how it spread it like a wildfire throughout the community. Even the people of the original order in Wisconsin, Montana, they would come to the Philadelphia branch of the Black Panther Party and come to us for protection against the racist attacks upon their community. And we would help them. See, it just wasn't a black community thing. The White Patriot Party came out in support and came out and wanted help. They had white folks coming out the Appalachian Mountains, coming down to be trained in the Black Panther Party offices. So you have to also understand all oppressed people are affected by the wanton oppression and protection of materialistic things and not the oppression of the needs of the inhabitants of our community.
All right. Okay, I'm going to go on to the next question. Is this thing working? Can you hear me? Okay. AIDS is rapidly becoming a major cause of death among women of childbearing age, particularly black and Latino women. How do you see the issues facing the black community, black women concerning AIDS prevention, education, and treatment?
I'd like to respond to that.
Sheba.
I work in a private AIDS practice in San Francisco, and in San Francisco you mostly have gay white men suffering from AIDS, and the black men are generally IV drug abusers. When I was working here in Oakland, most of the people that I saw that were suffering from AIDS were also IV drug abusers. While, like I said, I did visit New York, and while I was there, I had opportunity to go to a doctor's meeting at Harlem Hospital, and 40% of the names that I heard there were women. I think that one thing that has happened is that the black community has taken the idea that if I don't practice anal sex and I don't use drugs, I'm not going to get AIDS. That's a lie. If you have sex with a person who has had sex with a person, who has had sex with a person, who has used IV drugs or had anal intercourse, you'll get AIDS. I think the fact that many people have been frightened by the moral issue attached to the AIDS virus has made people take an ostrich position, and that's a deadly position. You have your ass up in the air, and that's how a lot of people got AIDS in the first place. Pardon my language. So I would say back off of the ostrich position. When my daughter went to college, I gave her a box of condoms. And she said, "But Mama, I don't do that." I said, "I don't care. Take these condoms with you. If you have sex and if you're in a relationship that is monogamous, or if it's not monogamous, if it's committed, have yourself and your partner tested." I mean, straight up. My thing, I told my daughter, if he don't want to use a condom, he don't want it. Period. You have to take a hard line or you will die. And AIDS is a horrible death. I've seen people die piecemeal from diabetes. I have never, ever in 20 years seen such a horrible disease. AIDS kills you from the inside out. It attacks your eyes, your heart, your liver, every organ of your body. And the medications that they use to treat AIDS will kill you too. That's sad but true. The government is doing its best to keep the new drugs from coming into development. There's a study going on a drug called DDI. Now, the drug itself has some problems, but the manufacturer found out that it was the base that they were using to carry the drug that was killing people straight up. Killing people from diarrhea. It's citrate base. They went back to the FDA and said, the citrate base is killing people. Let us change the citrate base. They said, if you do, you have to scrap all of your work. Stop the studies, start from day one. Take everybody that's on this drug off. And the people that are on this drug are the people that cannot tolerate AZT, the people that will be dead in 3 months if they take them off the drug. So your government is busy making sure that the AIDS virus kills the people that it was intended to kill, black people and gay white men. And there is a very, for me, convincing rumor that AIDS is the result of germ warfare experimentation. That's why I say it's killing the people that it was designed to kill. And we need to back off, and even in Africa, the virus spreads because people don't want to talk about sex. People would rather close their ears to me saying, "Get your ass up out the air," than keep their children from dying from AIDS. I'm not going in nobody's bedroom and tell them how to have sex. But I will sit here and tell you to use a condom.
I think there's another side to it also. I work with a lot of pregnant women, and even with the AIDS scare, I don't know which music group that sang it, "Don't Believe in the Hype." Well, there is a lot of information that is not correct, although we do realize women are the fastest growing people who are dying of AIDS. There's another part to it. Last year, they also started a rumor that syphilis was on the rise in West Oakland because they had a few babies at Highland born of AIDS and syphilis. When they came to our site and tested 180 women, not one case of AIDS or syphilis was found. and this was supposed to be the high-risk area. I don't know if it's because the women that we tested were the most educated or used condoms or whatever, but I do think that media and government tend to scare folks, and rumors get out, and we never get the correct information. So it's a whole thing of education, that women must really begin to educate themselves and their families so that we can wipe out some of these illnesses.
On the other hand, I began working I have been working as an electronic engineer technologist instructor with Berkley Unified School District for several years. I decided to go on a leave of absence and take a chill pill when Miss Rahman said, "No, honey, I'm setting up this project and I need someone to help me, and you're going to be one." I never in my wildest dreams would have thought that I would have been back out in the community working with healthcare issues after leaving New Haven, Connecticut, working with lead paint poisoning and the free clinics in Philadelphia. However, getting to the point, I started working with Majida, and I was recruited into the STAR Prenatal Care Project at Highland General Hospital. And that project was in its embryonic stage, and I was called upon to develop a segment of the project called Community Healthcare Worker. Now, what is that? You know, I had to take my background, all my past education, go out into the community and educate the community and try to retrieve these sisters who are pregnant substance abusers, pregnant HIV positive, pregnant positive RPRs, pregnant positive CZs, chlamydia positive, trich positive gonorrhea at 3 different levels, syphilis at congenital states. These women were all over 20 to 21 weeks pregnant. As a result of this, the statistics read, out of the first quarter of the year 1990, we had seen 111 patients. Out of this 111 patients, 68 are African Americans, 18 of Latin American descent, 11 European American, 5 Asian American, and 2 they have other, and 7 positive HIVs. Now, my territory includes more than West Oakland, includes the entire East Oakland, North Oakland, Oakland. The sisters who were positive HIV, hey, I'm not a counselor, you know, but they gave me the title community healthcare worker, gave me crash courses, crash counseling courses. They figured the girl is an engineer, give her a crash course. So one day, all-day seminar for a whole week. I had 5 different all-day seminars slapped with state, federal, and county certificates for AT, AIDS training, alternative test site, confidential test site, and counsel, AIDS counseling. So, I had 2 of my ladies die. 2 of the sisters died. And it was hard hitting for me. And the positive HIV, the way it hit our community, it had hit our community and it hit these sisters in a fashion that they don't even want to talk about it. You know, sister, look, this is what's up with you. I don't even want to talk about it, girl. If I'm going to die, I will die. Just let me go on about my life. What about condoms? Girl, my man ain't going to let me use no condom. My man can't, you can't come up to him with no condom. So then you have to go through a political education class with the sisters because they're so embarrassed because of what the society have done to them. what the society have done in the media to people who test positive to HIV, and all along they knew the end result would be the black community. They tested it on the European gay men. They tested it on the African American gay men. And then it trickled down somehow or another to the IV drug user. Now who knows? How could you find out who's shooting up with a needle? How can you find it? What are you going to do? Disrobe a person? And when you jump in the sack, it's in the dark. So you have to understand these things and understand why there's a need for you to take a positive approach to the problem and get yourselves out there and do some work.
I'd just like to add that it's bad here in America. They've just indicated, again, I have to go along with Majida, you can't believe everything you read, but they've declared that in New York, AIDS has become the leading cause of death of black women. In Africa, AIDS is claiming the lives of 20% of nations' populations. Zimbabwe alone has something like 400,000 cases. It's spreading like wildfire all over the continent of Africa. It's extremely serious, and it really smacks of genocide, because while they're mobilizing at the rate of 250,000 American troops in the Gulf, and they're spending billions of dollars. I think the figure is something like $1 billion a day at this point. Correct me if I'm wrong. They can't seem to find any money when it comes to dealing with AIDS research, health care, and so forth. So I think this just really calls up the urgency of the need for change. I'm going to go on to the next question. I know my sisters are going to love this. Is there a difference between white feminism and black feminism? And is the role of black women to save ourselves and our people, and not to try and save a sex with a group who will always have an ulterior motive?
I ain't touching that. I just want to say this one thing. I'm not white feminism. I'm not very. I don't know too much about that. I do want to say this though, that black women cannot be free until the black men are. And so far as these organizations, so far as feminine organizations, so forth, concerned, a lot of black women don't associate themselves with this because it's not helpful to us. We've been oppressed so long, you know, I mean, what difference does it make? You know what I'm saying? And as of right now, unfortunately, a lot of black women are the sole supporters of their families, so we've just had to be a strong race in order just to survive without having all these little laws and, yeah, coming our way. We've done this for many, many years. So, so far as white feminists and black feminists and all this, I call it bullshit, really. You know, I'm not going to get into that whatsoever.
I really see it as racism manifested in the feminist movement, and you have to deal with that. You have to deal with that. Anytime you come on, we got enough shit on our hands, goddammit, and I don't care about that bullshit. If you're a feminist, that's your thing. You deal with that, okay? You don't bust that mess up into no black-white trip. If you're a feminist and you can't deal with blackness, that's your problem. Don't try to come in on a feminist movement and call yourself a revolutionary. Because a revolution don't give a damn who you laying with. You better be laying with a 357 or a Uzi with the shake coming down. That better be your man.
I had an experience I would like to share with you very briefly with a white feminist in New Haven. White feminists descended on New Haven in droves and surrounding Ericka Huggins. And one offered me a ride down to New York. I was planning to spend the weekend. And she said that if I couldn't hook up with my friends, she said if I couldn't hook up with my friends, you're excused, Sister Love. But let me reinforce this point that you just made. So to make this long story short, I wound up staying in her apartment because I didn't manage to hook up with my friends, and she was very, very nicely had given me her phone number. And when I went to her address, I was in total shock because I was going to change classes real quick. And I wound up in a penthouse apartment on the east side of Manhattan. And I slept very comfortably that night. And the next morning, this is white feminist, remind you. And the next morning, I woke up and I heard somebody singing. And then somebody, she had a little boy, and he was in his crib. And I opened my eyes. I'm not good in the morning. I opened my eyes, and I saw the very first thing I saw were the feet and the legs and stuff, and it caught my eye. She was in white uniform. And then I looked all the way up, and I noticed she was black. And I'm not saying no more. So much for white feminism. In literature about the 60s, I've read that the men asked the women to take a back seat and then proceeded to pursue white women. Woo! Is it possible? It's gonna get hot. In literature about the 60s, I've read that the men asked the women to take a back seat and then proceeded to pursue white women. Is it possible for a black revolutionary to engage in an interracial relationship and maintain blacks' best interest?
I wish one of them would have ever come up in my face and talking about take a back seat. No, I didn't have it around me.
No, I think they may be referring to maybe one or two single incidents that may have occurred, but I have always been in a leadership position. I had been brought up to the position of a leader. And my troops identified with their mother's womb.
I have to say something about this. I'm not going to comment on black women taking a back seat. I'll leave that one alone. I will say we have had a lot of white sympathizers. How they got involved with the Black Panther Party, I don't know. We had quite a few. There were rules and regulations in the Black Panther Party which were different. Men were allowed to do certain things and women were not allowed to do certain things. That's all I think I'd rather comment on so far as that question is concerned, because that starts going into the faults of some of the rules and regulations in the Black Panther Party, and that answer will come out later on in a book that I'm getting ready to publish. I'm not going to say any more about that now. I think that I don't think we should comment on that too much.
If you're asking someone to take a back seat in the struggle, then you cannot be a revolutionary. If you're a revolutionary, you want everybody on the front line. As far as interracial relationships, any relationship is very personal. I think that is not outside of the realm of possibility for a person to be involved in an interracial relationship and still have the best interests of their people at heart. But if they're asking anybody to take a back seat, they're not a revolutionary. You don't need to even deal with the rest of the question.
Do you think the organizations like the National Organization of Women now, or the National Abortion Rights Action League, or Planned Parenthood are organizations of any use to black women? Who wants to take that on?
I think
Majida.
I think a lot of those organizations are good, especially Planned Parenthood. I don't get into, at our center, we do not get into the whole issue of abortions because we think that's a personal choice. That's a choice between the woman and the man or her partner. We talk a lot about planned pregnancies. We do have a lot of women who started having children real young, 12, 13, 14. And, you know, they have 7, 8, and 9 children now. And it's hard, it's rough, especially if there's not a partner there or a family there to help you. So I think some of the activities that Planned Parenthood have available for women, and especially in terms of planned pregnancy, teenage information, is very helpful because there are very few places where you can go to get that kind of information, maybe from your local health clinic. I don't know that much about now. I didn't identify with them at all. But I think for the population that they're trying to reach, it's obvious that they're doing a good job.
I've just been given the time notice. We have time for just one more question, unfortunately. And then those of you who would like to join us upstairs for a reception are most welcome. Question, do you feel that the American system can be changed, or do you feel it must be destroyed completely in order to begin an egalitarian world community? Is the system too powerful? Is the present time now? Quite a few questions in one. Or do we there's a word missing here. Do we something an economic situation for the general population to gain enough support to overturn the system? I think we've gotten the gist of what the writer is trying to ask. I think perhaps what the person is saying is that it cannot be reformed or fixed up, or does it have to be destroyed and then, you know, should we start all over again? Does somebody want to handle that?
I would suggest that we would talk about this matter on a one-on-one basis, and I'm not ready to be taking my opinions and slapping them out here to y'all like that, not on those topics. And if you want to talk about it, maybe you come up to the reception and we could, you know, kick it around.
Is anybody else willing to deal with this question?
Burn it down.
I drew a picture years ago and it says,
Crazy. Oh, y'all crazy.
before we talk about reconstruction, let's accomplish the ruins.
Well, I think we're kind of in agreement there. I tend to think that if the house is rotten to the core and termite mites are eating away at it and everything, you don't try to fix that thing. You tear it down and you start all over again. That's as simple as that. So, and I'm just going to leave you with the words of Jonathan Jackson. He said, if there is a big job of growing to do, the sooner begun, the sooner done.
Hey.
I thank you.